Imagine this. You pour your heart into something and someone criticizes it. Instantly, you feel attacked. Sound familiar? We've all been there. But what if I told you that the key to true freedom is not taking things personally, that the opinions, judgments, and actions of others have little to do with you and everything to do with them? Today, let's talk about how to stay free by mastering the art of not taking things personally. We live in a world where opinions are everywhere. From social media comments to casual conversations, people constantly express their thoughts about the world, about others, and sometimes about us. And when we hear someone's opinion about us, whether it's a compliment or a criticism, we instinctively assume that it holds some deep truth about who we are. But here's what we often forget. What people say about us says more about them than it does about us. Think about it. Two people can look at the same person, the same action, or the same decision and have completely opposite reactions. One might say, "That's brilliant," while the other says, "That's ridiculous." If opinions were truly a reflection of you, they wouldn't change from person to person. But they do. Why? Because people don't see things as they are. They see things as they are. Every person views the world through a lens shaped by their experiences, beliefs, fears, and insecurities. Their opinions, whether positive or negative, are colored by their personal history. A person who values risk-taking will admire boldness, while someone who fears uncertainty will criticize it. A person who grew up in an environment where they were encouraged might see confidence as inspiring, while someone who was often criticized might see confidence as arrogance. Let's say you decide to start a business. One friend says, "That's amazing, you're so brave." Another friend says, "That's risky, are you sure you want to do that?" Their opinions don't define whether your decision is good or bad, they simply reveal how they view risk. The first person might admire entrepreneurs or have an adventurous spirit. The second person might have seen someone fail before, or might struggle with uncertainty themselves. But none of this changes the reality of your decision. It simply highlights their internal world. The same principle applies to criticism. If someone calls you too ambitious, is that really about you, or is it about their own relationship with ambition? Maybe they've been taught that ambition is selfish, or maybe they've seen people fail by aiming too high. If someone says, "You're not good enough," is that about you, or is it a reflection of their own fears and limitations? This is why two people can experience the same event and interpret it differently. If someone is rude to you, one person might say, "Ignore it, they're probably having a bad day," while another says, "That person clearly hates you." The event is the same, but the interpretation is different, because each person brings their own emotions and experiences into the situation. Understanding this changes everything, because when you recognize that people's opinions are projections of their own world, you stop letting them define yours. We often believe that our emotions are directly tied to the actions of others. Someone praises us and we feel good. Someone criticizes us and we feel hurt. A friend ignores our message and we assume they're upset with us. A colleague takes credit for our work and we immediately feel disrespected. It's as if our emotional state is controlled by everything happening around us. But the truth is, real personal freedom comes from emotional detachment. The ability to separate how we feel from what others say or do. Now, detachment doesn't mean indifference. It doesn't mean we stop caring about people or become emotionally cold. It means we stop allowing external circumstances to dictate our inner peace. It means developing the ability to observe without immediately reacting, to process without absorbing, and to understand without personalizing. Think about the last time someone said something that upset you. Maybe it was a passing comment, a piece of unsolicited advice, or a remark that felt like a personal attack. The moment you let those words sink into your identity, they gained power over you. But what if you had looked at that comment objectively? What if, instead of immediately feeling hurt, you asked yourself, "Is this really about me? Or does this actually change who I am?" Emotional detachment allows us to step back and analyze situations with clarity. Imagine standing on the shore and watching waves crash against the rocks. The waves are strong, relentless, and unpredictable, but the rocks remain unmoved. They don't fight the waves, they don't try to stop them, they simply exist. That's what emotional detachment looks like. It's standing firm in who you are while allowing life's events to come and go without shaking your foundation. When we take things personally, We hand over control of our emotions to others. Someone's bad mood can ruin our day. A negative comment can lower our confidence. A misunderstanding can consume our thoughts for hours. But when we practice detachment, we start to see things for what they are. We recognize that not every situation requires an emotional reaction. Not every opinion needs to be absorbed. Not every criticism is a reflection of our worth. Think about a time you received a compliment. Maybe someone told you that you were talented, intelligent, or kind. It felt good, right? But did it make you talented, intelligent, or kind? No. You were those things before the compliment. The words simply acknowledge something that already existed. The same is true for criticism. If someone says you're not good enough, does that make it true? No, their words don't create reality. They simply express an opinion. Emotional detachment is also about understanding that we can't control others, only ourselves. People will have bad days. They will say things they don't mean. They will act out of their own fears, insecurities, and frustrations. If we absorb everything, we become prisoners of their emotions. But if we step back and observe, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Detachment also allows us to navigate conflict with a clearer mind. Instead of reacting impulsively, we learn to respond with intention. Instead of taking offense, we ask questions. Instead of feeling attacked, we consider the bigger picture. This shift doesn't just protect our peace. It strengthens our relationships, our confidence, and our ability to stay focused on what truly matters. Feedback is a part of life. From childhood, we are given feedback by parents, teachers, friends, and eventually colleagues, bosses, and even strangers. Some of it is constructive, some of it is critical, and some of it is simply noise. But the problem arises when we start treating feedback as a definition of who we are rather than what it truly is, just data. Imagine a scientist running an experiment. When they gather data, they don't take the results personally. They don't say, oh no, this experiment failed, so I must be a failure. They analyze, adjust, and try again. That's exactly how we should approach feedback. The challenge is that most of us have been conditioned to equate feedback with personal identity. If someone tells us we did a great job, we feel validated. If they tell us we fell short, we feel like we aren't good enough. But feedback is not a verdict. It is not a stamp of approval or rejection. It is simply information, something that can help us improve, adjust, or reinforce what we're doing. Think about the last time someone criticized your work. Maybe they said, this isn't good enough, or you should have done this differently. Your first instinct might have been to feel defensive or discouraged, but let's break that down. What was actually happening? Someone gave you a piece of data based on their perspective. That's all it was. Their words didn't define your worth, intelligence, or capability. They simply provided information that you can choose to use, analyze, or discard. The same applies to positive feedback. If someone praises you, it feels good. But should that praise define you? Should it be the reason you believe in yourself? No, because if you rely on praise to feel valuable, you'll be just as vulnerable to criticism when it comes. When you separate your identity from feedback, you gain freedom. You no longer ride the emotional roller coaster of external validation. Now, this doesn't mean we ignore feedback. Feedback is valuable. It gives us insights we might not have seen on our own, but we must approach it with the right mindset. Instead of taking it as a personal judgment, we should ask, is this feedback useful? Does it align with my goals? Is there something I can learn from this? If the answer is yes, we take it in and apply it. If the answer is no, we let it go. A great example of this is athletes. They receive constant feedback. Coaches correcting their form, fans criticizing their performance, commentators analyzing their every move. If an athlete took every piece of feedback as a definition of their worth, they wouldn't last. But the best athletes use feedback as a tool. They take what's useful, make adjustments, and keep going. The same principle applies in our personal and professional lives. If someone says, you're not a good leader, don't hear that as a statement of identity. Instead, here is some data about how I perceive your leadership. Then you decide what to do with that information. When we shift our mindset from feedback as judgment to feedback as data, we take back control. We no longer fear criticism and we no longer depend on praise. We simply listen, learn, and move forward with clarity and confidence. Many people spend their entire lives chasing confidence. They believe that if they receive enough praise, if enough people approve of them, if they are liked, admired, or validated, then they will finally feel confident. But that's an illusion, because confidence doesn't come from approval, it comes from purpose. Approval is external. It is given or taken away by others. It fluctuates based on opinions, trends, and circumstances beyond our control. One day people applaud you, the next day they criticize you. If your confidence is built on that, it will always be fragile. You'll constantly seek validation, and when you don't get it, you'll start questioning yourself. Purpose, on the other hand, is internal. It doesn't waver based on what people think. It gives you a foundation that is unshakable. When you are clear on your purpose, why you do what you do, you don't need constant reassurance from the world. Your confidence isn't dependent on whether people agree with you, like you, or praise you. It comes from knowing that what you're doing matters. Think about some of the most confident people in history: leaders, visionaries, change makers. Were they confident because everyone approved of them? No. In fact, many of them faced intense criticism, opposition, and even ridicule, but they didn't let that shake them, because their confidence wasn't built on approval. It was built on their commitment to something bigger than themselves. Imagine an artist who paints not to please critics, but because they are passionate about expressing their vision. Whether people love or hate their work doesn't change the fact that they will keep creating. Their confidence doesn't come from applause, it comes from their purpose. Or think of an entrepreneur who believes in their idea. If their confidence was based on approval, they would give up the moment someone doubted them. But if their confidence comes from purpose, they will push forward even when people don't believe in them, because they aren't looking for permission, they are following something deeper. Now, let's flip the perspective. What happens when confidence is built on approval? A person might feel good when they are praised, but the moment they face rejection, they crumble. They second-guess themselves, they hesitate, they start changing who they are just to fit into what others want. This isn't confidence, it's dependency. It's the constant need to be reassured, liked, and validated. And the truth is, no amount of external approval can ever fill the void of not having a strong internal purpose. Confidence that comes from purpose is different. It doesn't mean you don't care about feedback, but it means you don't rely on it to feel worthy. It means that even when you fail, even when people doubt you, even when the road is difficult, you keep going because you know why you're doing what you do. People will always have opinions. Some will support you, some won't. Some will understand your vision, some won't. But when you are driven by purpose, you no longer seek permission to be confident. You don't wait for approval to take action. You don't let the fear of judgment stop you from moving forward, because your confidence isn't built on their opinions, it's built on something far more powerful. Life is full of moments that test us: a harsh comment, an unfair situation, a disagreement, a failure. Every day, we are faced with situations that trigger emotional reactions. And in those moments, we have a choice. We can react impulsively, letting emotions take control, or we can pause, reflect, and choose growth. Reaction is immediate. It's emotional, often defensive, and rarely thoughtful. When something upsets us, our instinct is to react, to snap back, to argue, to prove a point, to defend ourselves. But reactions are often driven by ego, fear, or frustration. They don't help us move forward. They just keep us stuck in a cycle of emotional responses that do little to change the situation. Growth, on the other hand, requires patience. It requires us to step back, observe, and ask a different question. Not how do I react, but what can I learn? Instead of seeing challenges as personal attacks, we see them as opportunities to improve, to understand, and to evolve. Think about the last time someone criticized you. Your natural response might have been to feel hurt, offended, or defensive. Maybe you wanted to argue back or prove them wrong. But what if, instead of reacting, you had taken a moment to ask, is there something valuable in this feedback? Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. But choosing growth means considering that possibility before allowing emotions to take over. The same applies to conflict. In a heated argument, reacting only adds fuel to the fire. But when you choose growth, you stop focusing on winning the argument and start focusing on understanding. You listen, you process, you respond with clarity instead of emotion. That doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It means you control the situation instead of letting it control you. Choosing growth over reaction also applies to failure. When things don't go as planned, the immediate reaction might be frustration, self-doubt, or even giving up. But if you pause and ask, what can this teach me? The entire situation changes. Failure is no longer an endpoint, it becomes a stepping stone. It's easy to react, it's much harder to pause, reflect, and grow. But the people who achieve real success, whether in their careers, relationships, or personal lives, are the ones who make that choice. They don't let temporary emotions dictate their actions. They don't let small moments define them. They step back, they learn, and they move forward, stronger than before. The way we experience life is shaped not by what happens to us, but by how we choose to respond. When we take things personally, we hand over control, allowing others' words, opinions, and actions to dictate our emotions, our confidence, and our decisions. But when we shift our perspective, when we learn to detach emotionally, see feedback as information, build confidence from purpose, and choose growth over reaction, we reclaim our freedom. Because freedom isn't about avoiding criticism or seeking approval. It's about standing firm in who you are, knowing that no single comment, no passing judgment, and no temporary setback can define you. The world will always have opinions. Some will lift you up, some will try to tear you down. But at the end of the day, your power lies in your ability to stay true to yourself, to focus on what truly matters, and to keep moving forward, unshaken, unstoppable, and truly free.